Hey everybody, it's Cooterz, and today we're going to be going over the Champion and Pathfinder changes they have made to Path of Exile in the newest Ascendancies for 3.2.0. So let's get into that. Alright, so this is the Champion changes to this Ascendancy. I'm just going to go over what's in the yellow. The orange is pretty much just the traveling nodes. They have been changed, but they're not a huge change. I think most people want to see the key nodes. So let's go ahead and look at this first one. First to strike, last to fall. Your hits permanently intimidate enemies that are on full life. Gain adrenaline for 20 seconds when you reach low life if you do not have adrenaline. And remove all ailments and burning when you gain adrenaline. That's pretty cool. Adrenaline grants 100% increased damage, 25% increased attack, cast, and movement speed, and 10% additional physical damage reduction. So if we want to take a look at what First to Strike, Last to Fall used to do, it's quite different. It's not completely changed, but pretty much changed. So adrenaline's a new thing, kind of like Rage for Berserker. Instead, before you had 40% increased damage when not on low life, and you had 200% increased armor and evasion when on low life. So now you instead get your hits to permanently intimidate enemies that are on full life instead of increased damage, and you gain adrenaline when you reach low life if you do not have adrenaline, which that gives you like a ton more damage, right? And 100% increased damage and 25% increased attack and cast speed and movement speed, which is really, really good. And then additional physical damage reduction. You still had the elemental ailments are removed when you reach low life. Same thing here. Instead, it says remove all ailments and burning when you gain adrenaline. So it's pretty similar as when you hit low life, you get adrenaline and you remove those. And then before you had your hits permanently intimidate enemies that are on full life. So that's nothing new. So pretty much all the low life stuff is the new changes. Unstoppable Hero over here. We have a 10% increased attack speed while you have Fortify, 30% increased melee damage while you have Fortify, and plus 1,000 to armor and evasion rating while you have Fortify. Cannot be stunned while you have Fortify. So that is pretty much the traveling node to Fortitude, which did not change. That just gives you Fortify. That's the exact same thing. You always have Fortify instead of having to put on the support gem. So Unstoppable Hero from before, pretty similar. You still had the 10% attack speed gain while you had Fortify. You also had the 30%. You had the 30% increased melee damage, but before you had 30% increased armor and evasion. Now you just have a flat 1,000 to armor and evasion. So take it as you will. Could be better, could be worse. It really depends on how much armor and evasion you're stacking. You cannot be stunned while you have Fortified. That is a new thing. So you do gain that stun immunity, which is pretty good. Okay, moving over to the right side, we have Inspirational. You and your nearby allies deal 35% damage, which is kind of more the support one. And you and your nearby allies have 12% increased movement speed. So before Inspirational did very similar things, but instead of having the 12 or the 8%, you now have another 4% increased movement speed for you and your allies. So just a better node to get into for support, possibly because of changes that are coming down the pipeline for other Ascendancies. We'll see. Or just might be an overall buff. Conqueror, 100% chance to taunt on hit. 6% reduced damage taken if you've taunted an enemy recently, and 2% of life regenerated per second if you taunted an enemy recently. Enemies taunted by you deal 10% less damage with hits and ailments against other targets. So Inspirational before, or Conqueror, sorry, instead of having only 25% chance to taunt on hit, now you would taunt all the time, 100% chance there. The 6% reduced damage, still a same thing there, and you have 2% of life regenerated per second instead of the 1% life regen, so 100% increase there, or double. And then the enemies you've taunted deal 10% less damage hits and elements. That is basically an improvement over taunt. I believe taunt is 5% normally. I think, quote me if I'm wrong in comments down below. But if that's the case, then it gives you a little bit of a buff there when you intimidate or taunt. Sorry. All right. Last one. Worthy Foe. Enemies you taunt take 20% increased damage. Enemies taunted by you cannot evade attacks, which is actually very good in the when you think about it. When it comes to the two things that people would run, Resolute Technique or Lycosidae. That was a big thing where your enemies you always hit. So in this one, at least your enemies can't evade if you've taunted them. Worthy Foe. Enemies you take or taunt take 20% increased damage, same thing. And instead of having the 10% less damage of hits and ailments on other targets, it got moved up to Conqueror, and the taunted by you cannot evade attacks was added are tacked on to Worthy Foe. So it's pretty much the changes to Champion. Definitely a buff all around. Of course, the traveling notes are a little bit different. You know, you gain a little bit more melee damage but lose some attack speed. But overall, it's not that big of a difference. All right, Pathfinder. This is the one I think a lot of people have been really kind of been waiting for. They've been expecting a big nerf. So let's see if our intuitions are correct. Nature's Boon, 6% reduce elemental damage taken, period. Flask gain 3 charges every 3 seconds, 20% chance for your flasks not to consume charges. So Nature's Boon before was 8% reduced elemental damage taken, so you do lose 2% there, so it is a slight nerf. You still get the same, you gain 1 charge every 3 seconds. This time you gain 3 charges every 3 seconds, so a slight buff there actually. And 20% chance to not consume charges. Same thing there. So a little bit, I mean, a little nerf and a little buff, I'd say. Nature's Adrenaline, 15% increased movement speed during any flask effect, and 20% increased attack speed during any flask effect. Didn't change at all. So, yeah, didn't change at all. Exactly the same. Master Surgeon, 30% increased life recovery from flask. I believe that's the same. Removes bleeding when you use a flask and gain a flash charge when you deal a critical strike. Before you had the same thing with the life recover, the same thing with removing bleeding. And you also gain a flash charge when you deal a critical strike. So really the same thing here. Very, very, very similar. Master Alchemist, immune to elemental ailments during any flask effect. That's the same. 40% increased elemental damage during any flask effect, and 20% chance of free shock and night during any flask effect. Exactly the same. Veteran Bowyer, gain 10% of physical damage as an extra damage of a random element. Same thing. Damage penetrates 10%. Elemental resists, same thing. Enemies that you kill are affected by elemental elements and grant 100% increased flat charges. Okay, it's exactly the same. Master Herbalist. I'm assuming it's going to be the same thing here. 20% increased damage with poison, 20% increased poison duration, and 30% to chaos resistance during any flask effect, and 60% chance. Excuse me, to gain 60% chance to poison on hit during any flask effect. So same thing, really not really a change at all. Actually less nerfs than I thought there was going to be. Only the 6% to 8% reduce, or sorry, the 8% to 6% reduce elemental damage taken was the only big change here. And then I guess gaining 3 charges every 3 seconds opposed to just 1 charge. So overall, I guess Pathfinder, you know, not much of a change. I think the reason why for this is because of the fact that Pathfinder probably will kind of be still a class that you want to play. They don't want to nerf it too hard to the point rather where you just won't even play anymore, because they are nerfing, or sorry, not nerfing, but buffing almost all the ascendancies that we saw so far, especially with Hierophant. We saw that a huge buff there, just a main rework. I mean, 7 keynotes, just way different than the normal 5 or so. So yeah, this one is definitely nothing to kind of, I don't know, it's nothing to really like push yourself over one way or the other. I think Pathfinder's still going to be good. I think Pathfinder is one of the better ascendancies when it comes to farming, maybe not so much single target, but just in general, when there's double dipping, you know, Master Herbalist was a big thing, and now without double dipping, it's not really, but Veteran Bowyer is really good. Master Alchemist, you know, being immune to stats elements, kind of ties in with the Hierophant one, you know, when you have your tone down. You have a chance to be immune to elemental elements as well. So I think I'm happy with the changes. I think Champion that we looked at, pretty good changes, all around buff, obviously. And Pathfinder, side grade. I mean, what more can you ask for, I guess? So it's a good thing, I think, that GG did not suck the fun out of this one. That's pretty much it for the Champion Pathfinder overview. Tell me what you guys think in the comments down below. Which one are you surprised by? Are you surprised by the fact that Pathfinder didn't get touched as much as we thought it was? And how do you think Champion looks? All right, that's it, guys. Do remember to do big, do good, and do you. And I'll see you guys in the next video.